So they don't want to depart from those places where they have found happiness and contentment in their hearts. For when they go to another place, they feel very uncertain about their practice, and whether it is going to be equally as good as they have been accustomed to. The hardship of the Kammatthana Bhikkhu. The Dhutanga Kammatthana Bhikkhu, whose heart is intent on attaining that state where there is no discontent, dukkha, willingly accepts that he will probably come across nothing but lack and insufficiency in all external things as part of his practice. In other words, he likes to go and live in places where things are insufficient and hard to get. But apart from the natural lack of things in the environment where he lives, there is also his own willing intention to go without things and to live a life of poverty. The food which he gets on Paṭipadā may be plentiful, but he only eats a little of it, perhaps only the rice, even though he was given other food as well. He may decide to fast some days, or for several days at a time, or perhaps to alternate doing now one way, now another. While doing pāvana, he must look and see what results of calm and skillfulness his citta gets in the direction of mindfulness and wisdom. He must watch and define what methods give better results than others. Then he must strive to go that way all the time. Sometimes he may fast for several days and then eat less than normal, or else he may eat less than normal for a few days, followed by a complete fast for 4 or 5 days, and then eat normally or less than normal as he sees fit. In observing the state of the body, the dhatu khandha, and of the mind or heart, it is necessary to keep a watch on both of them at the same time. If the body feels too tired and weak, he should increase his food intake by a reasonable amount, but not as much as the body calls for all at once, for this would depress the citta too much. He may, for instance, increase his food by 50 or 60% above the meager diet that he has been taking. If, however, he feels that his body is functioning abnormally due to malnutrition, he must stop fasting and dieting entirely for the time being until his body has had time to recover, after which he may gradually start dieting or fasting again. Those who are most likely to progress steadily by using these methods are those who are characteristically suited to them. Even though they ought to ease off for the sake of their health when their bodies show signs of malnutrition and weakness, generally the heart does not want to give way. They still want to go on dieting or fasting continually, because they have already seen the resulting development which takes place in the heart every time they do so. But if they have to ease off, they should try to find a balance which is enough to satisfy the needs of the body and the citta, so that their progress will be smooth in accordance with their intended purpose. When dieting or fasting for a long period of time, it is quite normal for the body to be somewhat hungry, tired, and weak. But if they let themselves get troubled and anxious about this hunger and weakness, they will not be able to keep on doing it. This is one of the ways in which suffering comes in the practice of Kammatthana. Therefore, those Kammatthana monks who are hoping for calm and happiness of heart will generally have to make themselves accept hardship and poverty the whole time, even though they do not like doing it. But their characteristic tendencies and their hope in Dhamma make it essential for them to do and to put up with these things. It should be understood that where we talked of alternatively fasting and eating, or dieting and eating, this did not mean just for 1 or 2 months, but trying to keep it up all the time, for years, or until they become quite certain in their own hearts that there is no need to do so anymore. Then the citta can go on from there comfortably and smoothly without obstruction. They can stop using those methods and revert to more usual ways of practice in regard to the body and mind. But generally speaking, from what the writer has observed, those things that are called kilesas of whatever type and however much or little are always bound to manifest as our enemies with whatever power they have remaining in our hearts, for never have the kilesas been any respecter of persons anywhere at any time. Therefore, those who practice the way and who believe deeply in their hearts that the kilesas have been their enemies are not likely to be complacent and let the kilesas flourish by being overconfident and thinking, "The kilesas will become our friends, and no more will they create poison and harm, causing us to experience more suffering and trouble." Rather do they see full well that if we destroy them right now so that none are left, this will indeed be entirely satisfactory, and by far better than letting them stay there to bring more harm to us sometime in the future. This is the fundamental motive which drives them on without let-up in striving to follow and round up the kilesas in various ways, such as by dieting or fasting. For these are methods of helping and supporting their mental striving which makes their practice of samadhi very much more easy than normal, and they are not ready to relax or give up these methods which have always given such good results. In fact, it is generally true to say that they are not likely to relax those methods of striving and struggling to climb upwards by training and discipline, which they have seen to give good results, even after many years. For there are good and compelling reasons which are bound to make them strive in these ways. There are many bhikkhus in this lineage who have used the ways of dieting and fasting to aid their striving by way of the heart. It is probably more effective than other methods such as not lying down, and therefore they have always liked the way of fasting, right up to the present day. If one has already used the methods of dieting or fasting, it is also probable that there will be no need to give up lying down, for it will tend to happen of itself without any deliberate intention. This is because dieting and fasting tend to overcome drowsiness and sleepiness, which disappear of themselves. They can then spend the whole night without lying down and without feeling drowsy or sleepy as they would when eating food normally. For them, lying down and resting for a while is only for the purpose of gaining strength of body so as not to let it get too weak and exhausted, and not because drowsiness compels them to lie down and sleep, not while they are dieting and fasting. For the fact is that after they have been on a diet or have fasted for 3 or 4 days, all drowsiness and sleepiness which would otherwise lead them to lie down and sleep disappears. This makes it easy for them, as there is no longer any need to force themselves not to sleep. Then concentrating attention and controlling the mind becomes easy. The citta is not so wild and playful in its various accustomed obsessions, arammana, and mindfulness is not so easily lost in forgetfulness. They are then able to know those various situations and things which they come across much more quickly than in normal times when they are not dieting or fasting. When they practice for samadhi, they are able to drop into a state of calm easily, and in going the way of wisdom they are much more skillful and quick than they normally would be. These bhikkhus see the value of dieting and fasting, and how it brings advantages and makes it much easier in many ways for those whose dispositions are suited to it. So they endeavor to keep on doing it even though it may bring them more hardships than they would normally encounter, for their inherent tendencies of character bias them to go that way, and they must put up with these hardships. They cannot use the method which is both easy and expedient, like those who have gone the way of sukha Paṭipadā kippapiññā, easy practice and quick insight, for their inherent tendencies are not suitable for this way. They are more likely to be amongst those whose way is dukkha Paṭipadā dandāpiññā, difficult practice and slow insight. Therefore they must go against their inclinations, swallow the hardships, and take up this way with full commitment, so as to swallow the calm and happiness, which is samadhi, and also to swallow the skillfulness, which is mindfulness and wisdom, down into the heart each time. They have got to concentrate dukkha into the body and heart in a very big way to start with, to the point where they can hardly stand it, and there is also some danger that if their constitutional strength is not enough, they may die before they gain results. When one thinks of the struggling and striving of each one of those who practice the way before they can experience the taste of Dhamma each time, one cannot help but feel deep sympathy for them, for each time they must put up with a lot of deprivation and hardship. It is good, however, that there are still some bhikkhus who are prepared to oppose their natural inclinations and put up with the deprivation and hardships which are necessary all the time in their training and discipline without relaxing or slackening in their striving. But once they have taken a drink of sunlight and moonlight from the flow of Dhamma by the way of their practice, they no longer have to put up with the deprivation and hunger experienced in countless lives of all sorts of becoming and birth which the citta has grabbed and held onto in its countless wanderings. If they look into the truth of what the citta is bound to come across in the various circumstances which they will surely meet up with in future lives, it will make them feel wearied and sick of carrying these burdens. For they are bound to be born again and again, and to experience these things endlessly, unless they hurriedly endeavor to cut them short right now, so that all their heavy burdens may be made lighter or got rid of entirely, which means that they shed the burden entirely. seeing in a way that penetrates to the heart just how baneful is this samsara which has become bound up with each individual who has made his contract with it entirely by himself, is what makes them resolve to put forward the whole of their strength every time they go down inwardly for the purpose of striving on without giving way, relaxing, or weakening and saying they cannot stand it anymore. But in fact, they go on with outstanding and earnest determination, fighting for their own salvation to become foremost among people. They are not lacking in any aspect of striving, nor are they deficient in putting up with the hardships in doing their work, their duty. Mindfulness and wisdom, their skill, which enables them to fight and destroy their kilesas, is generated and arises all the time, every minute. Even the greatest dukkha is not likely to make them give up in their efforts to be self-restrained, to put up with hardship, and to hit back at the kilesas until the dukkha breaks up and falls away from them and they can emerge from it, no longer ready to accept their own inferiority. This is appropriate for those who are the followers of the Lord of the 10 supernormal insights, Dasabalanyana, who was a bold and valiant warrior and who never consented to ease off nor evade these hardships. However thick and obtusely the body of the kilesas, which are dukkha and its origin, samudaya, are wrapped around obscuring the sphere of the heart, we must strive to undo them, to cut and tear them away by attacking them with mindfulness, wisdom, faith, and effort, which are our weapons, until the wonder of Dhamma becomes apparent, arising in the sphere of the citta, such as one has never before experienced even in the remote past. It is the heart itself which is wonderful beyond what one could have ever imagined, and after this, nothing will ever again be able to hold it in subjection. This is the Dhamma that reaches the shore of death, as Venerable Ajaan expressed it at the time when he had reached the end point after the fight was over, which has been described in Venerable Ajaan's biography. It is this Dhamma which all those who practice the way struggle to reach so as to pay homage to it all the time, without weakening in their striving while trying out various methods which in most cases are resolute, severe, and ascetic, such as we have mentioned before. But none of these methods give any scope for easing off or relaxation to cure their weariness at all. If the Lord Buddha was still alive and should meet them while they were energetically striving to fight the kilesas and all their dukkha with patient acceptance of their difficulties, he would surely praise their efforts and encourage them soothingly, saying, "All of you who are outstanding in your striving for the sake of Nibbana, the supreme abode, are followers of the Tathagata. At present, you are displaying courage and resolve in fighting against the enemy with all your strength, so as to destroy all further becoming and birth by rooting out this tendency from your hearts without giving up, and so that your fame and honor should spread and be proclaimed loudly throughout the 3 realms of existence. For are you not striving to dig out the original root which is the chief enemy? In other words, Avidya, the all-powerful one, who leads beings into birth and death, and doing this with mindfulness and wisdom that is sharp and penetrating? We, the Tathagata, express our appreciation and approval of this, and may you strive to make Nibbana clearly apparent within your hearts quickly, with urgency. The Supreme Dhamma is waiting to fall into your hands, for you are at present strong and clever in the ways of mindfulness and wisdom." Thus he would lift them up and encourage them to increase their resolve by speaking soothingly to them, so as to arouse strong and lasting faith and a fighting spirit by using gentle words. He would gently and persuasively talk to them, increasing their strength of resolve by expressing his appreciation of the striving of these sons of the Sakya, who are going to reach Vimutti Dhamma in their hearts in a short while. For they will bring the wonder of Dhamma to the world, to cure the sorrow, grief, and confusion of all people who are in a state of trouble and turmoil with the kilesas and tanha, which spread a coating of poison everywhere. For there is no cure for this apart from the cleansing power of the Dhamma remedy, which goes down to the heart as given by those who have the wonder of Dhamma within themselves. As for those bhikkhus who should be able to gain victory over the enemy because of their persistent striving, the Lord Buddha is not likely to come to express his appreciation nowadays, for he has already attained parinibbana, and there are no longer any bodily constituents left. But the Lord's pure heart is a constant presence which is unshakable, even beyond death, giving assurance that whoever sees Dhamma sees the Tathagata. What we have repeated in the foregoing passages is some further explanation of the ways of striving associated with dieting or fasting, as done by those bhikkhus who practice with resolve in this way. As for the results which they should get from this, may the reader try it and find out for himself by following the gist of what we have already explained above. I who am writing this am quite certain about the practices which are described herein, both in regards to those things which are to be done, the causes, and also the results which come from them, that they are in harmony with each other. Because those things which have been described are things which I have done and practiced and gained results from. Therefore I have written about them so that those who are interested may also take them up and practice them, and maybe gain the same kind of results.